2 weekends ago, 3 members of our congregation went up and worshiped with the Lutheran congregation at the Washington State Penitentiary near Shelton. Heidi Mays, Mark Lead, and Gary Bowman. And as when our team goes to Mexico and build houses, we thought it'd be very worthy to hear a little bit about their experiences. So Heidi will be here in this first service today to tell us about the experience there. And we thank you for doing it. Heidi was also the primary organizer, really helped recruit people and line up people. So we thank you for that. And we thank you now for sharing some of your thoughts and reactions. Hold that real close.
Hold it close.
Yeah.
Closer? There we go. Yes, this was the 5th year that I've done it, and every year is a little bit different, but mostly the same. And it's very interesting taking that 3-hour drive up there, because part of the fun of it is just having a chance to talk to people in the congregation you don't actually typically spend 3 hours with in a car up and back. But arriving there and going through the security checks, and then you have quite a walk through the crown home to get back to the place where they have their church. It is a Lutheran congregation. These men that are in fellowship there having a service, it's actually a Lutheran service. So their bulletin is a little closer. Their bulletin was this size. It was a half-sheet piece of paper, and on there it had, "Give a welcome to beautiful Savior." And then there was like, "Introduction from Heidi." My name's on it. What was really moving about it was that they start with a lot of music, and they've got a screen where the words are up on a projection kind of thing, so we can follow along. There were no hymnals to read the music in. And the men's voices were beautiful. They were just beautiful, and they were singing in harmony. And I was really moved by that. That really touched me. And if I had Kleenex, I probably would have cried, but I didn't. And thank goodness I didn't. And then during communion, Gary Bowman had brought his Indian flutes, right? And he was playing his flutes as they served communion, and then they served communion. So if you are challenged in your faith to be worshiping and sharing communion and the word with incarcerated people, you do not know what they've done. And it is, I mean, here I am, Lord. God is calling us to share the good news and go tell it on the mountain to all sorts of people. And I felt like that's why I was there. I was trying to share with people that can't get out and visit our church, so we have to come in and visit theirs, that there is hope, there is forgiveness, and they are brothers in Christ. And that was in my kind of opening remarks. So it was quite moving. I'm sure I'll go again. It was Gary's first time, and he said, "You know what? You could pick 25 guys from our congregation, stick them in those uniforms, and they would look the same." They just look the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. A number of you have perhaps done similar things and or can think about next year, but I appreciated Heidi and Mark and Gary once again representing us there. And it fits in with our lessons today, but also with other words that Jesus spoke in the that beautiful second lesson from 1 Corinthians 13 that we heard read about love is patient and kind. Most often we'll hear that read at a wedding. It's a very favorite passage for a text at a wedding. It's a good text for a wedding about love. But it's also perhaps a good text to think about prison ministry and being with people, going to be with people that are in a hard place in their life, in a hard time in their life. And in fact, being in a prison for, presumably if they've had a fair trial, for committing actions that are just not acceptable. And so how do we feel about that? Well, we may have real judgments about what they did, but can we also see them very truly as who they are, namely part of the body of Christ? In fact, members of a sister Lutheran congregation. But the passage about love, as I was listening to the words again today, one of the things that Paul says that if I have faith to move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. In other words, it's a very real concern in the New Testament and the way that Jesus taught that if you begins with God's reaching us and grasping us and our responding in faith. But faith by itself is nothing. Faith by itself, as the book of James would say, is dead unless it grows in outward actions. And so, part and parcel of our response in faith is to love one another. If I have faith to move mountains but have not love, it's not complete, it's not real. And so, part of following the way of Christ is to love people, particularly people in difficult times. In Matthew chapter 25, Jesus is telling a number of parables. And then he has people picture the end of time when everybody goes to heaven. But it says, God divides, Christ divides those who have really followed him and those who have not. And the criteria he uses to determine who really has followed him or not is, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. And when I was in prison, you visited me. We don't think about that, but visiting people in prison is one of about 4 or 5 specific criteria that Jesus gives to display how we follow him with active love in our lives. For most of us, the world of a prison is just so far away from us, which in many senses is good. In many senses it's good that we're not familiar with prison. But it's out of our realm, it's out of our way of life. But even when you drive to Shelton, it's kind of off the road. It's up towards the Olympic Peninsula off the road. On the other hand, others of us in our own lives, in our own families, have experience with sisters or brothers or fathers and mothers who have been in prison and so forth. So it is part of that experience. But whether it's part of our experience or not, it's interesting that Jesus holds this out to us, that part of being people of faith is very specifically to reach out to those who are going through hard times, the hungry, the poor, and the homeless, and the imprisoned. And so it becomes a blessing for us to be able to have the opportunity to actually visit people in prison. It's a blessing for them. I know that they appreciated it when the 3 of you were there to worship with them. And it's satisfying to know that you're bringing a word of good hope, a word of encouragement. So it's fascinating to bring blessings to people. But the truth is that when we are engaged in active service, what we discover is that we receive every bit as much blessing in return. The learning experience of actually walking through the bolted doors, just the experience of being shut in. The experience, as Heidi said, of seeing people who you could walk by any day. They do not look like, in most cases, they do not look like hardened criminals. They look like everyday people. Probably people who in many ways in their lives were leading very regular lives, but in certain areas made some very unfortunate choices. Just that experience of discovering that people who we thought were not part of our family actually are part of our family from the standpoint of God. People who are not part of our world suddenly are part of our world. That's what Jesus was talking about in the gospel lesson, that kind of got his hometown crowd angry. He was really saying to them, God does love you. You are God's family. But God also loves people in Syria, people inside the outsiders. And so when we are going through life and responding to people that are around us, it's one thing. When we make some conscious choices to love the people who are away from us, who are not part of our circle, who in some ways we don't even approve of or we don't even really feel comfortable with. That's the reality of practicing that kind of intense and gracious love of Christ. And when it finally comes down to it, if we're good Lutherans, we admit that we're all guilty of something. We all need God's grace. And so there's not that much difference between us and the people who are behind bars. Clarence Darrow, the famous trial lawyer who was involved in the hearings on the use of Darwin, the teaching of evolution and so forth. But he also taught in schools for lawyers. And in one of his books, you can open up one of his books, where he's writing a book about how to choose a jury.